Scenario. You're applying to be a storyboard artist for one of Quentin Tarantino's upcoming films, which of course features multiple feet scenes. You want to make a good impression on Tarantino with your anatomically correct feet drawings, don't you? Well, you're in luck, dear viewer, as that happens to be exactly what this video is about. What a wacky coincidence. Here we have the major muscles of the foot consisting of extensors and abductors, though they're too small to really matter all that much, and as you'll see further into this video, it's better to observe the foot as a whole rather than concerning yourself with individual muscles. I just felt the need to include some visuals to show how tendons pull on the toes in order to lift them up or curl them in. What's more important to keep in mind are the bones of the lower leg, as the ends of the tibia and fibula are visible from the surface, as seen on the left. The edge of the tibia pokes out on the medial or inner side of the ankle, while the fibula sits on the lateral or outer side of the ankle. The tibia is also positioned higher up than the fibula. Including this slant rather than making the bones parallel to one another will go a long way in making your drawings look more convincing. Also note how we can still see the heel slightly behind the arch of the foot, despite this being a mostly front-on view. As for proportions, the foot can be divided into thirds from both the front and the side. Looking at it from a front-on view, the big toe makes up a full third, the two middle toes make up another, and the pinky toes make up the remaining third. Removing the big toe from the equation, the four smaller toes can be divided neatly down the middle. Moving on to the side view, the toes make up the first third of the foot, followed by the arch of the foot, and the final third is composed of the heel. While we're on this illustration, notice how the toes curve slightly inward towards each other, and how the tendons of the foot overlap at the ankle while the tibia and fibula are positioned behind. Understanding how these forms overlap with one another is also important to convey anatomical accuracy. There are also pads of fat underneath the foot to help with shock absorption. These pads create an oval shape on the big toe side, an elongated shape along the outer edge, and a more circular shape that makes up the heel. The remainder of the foot makes up the arch, which doesn't actually make contact with the ground. As mentioned earlier, it's better to think of the foot as simple shapes rather than concerning yourself with the different muscles and tendons. When viewed from the front, the foot creates a wedge or bell shape with the toes attached at the bottom. This bell shape will vary in length depending on whether the foot is being viewed straight on, which involves some foreshortening, or from slightly above looking down. When viewed from the side, it creates a simple triangular shape, and when drawing the foot from a 3/4 angle, it's best to imagine a sock covering the foot before adding the toes. By pretending your subject is wearing socks, it becomes easier to focus on the overall shape the foot is making rather than getting distracted by details. Here's some illustrations to better visualize the arch of the foot I mentioned. Those fat pads can be seen along the inner side of the foot, along with the arch in the middle, whereas the foot appears completely flat on the outer side. When drawing shoes or other foot coverings, it's important to remember that the top of the foot is raised higher near the big toe thanks to the arch underneath. This will help you maintain volume even when drawing shoes from a straight-on view, for example. I'll throw in some additional contours of the foot that further demonstrate that arch, and how the top plane of the foot transitions to the bottom. And as I alluded to when talking about proportions, the toes of the foot flow towards each other at an angle due to how they're attached to the rest of the foot. If you're feeling especially proactive, you can even include how the toes dip down at the nail similar to the fingers. You likely won't be drawing many close-ups of the feet for this detail to matter much, but you never know. This dip in the toes is also what makes them flare upwards. This is most prominent in the big toe as the curve in the other toes gradually becomes more subtle. I forgot to mention at the start, but all the illustrations shown up to this point come from Classic Human Anatomy by Valerie Winslow. Whenever I talk about the human figure, I'm almost always referencing this book. Just as I did in my hands video, I'll provide some stylized examples here from Ifsinachi Adrian. He uses straight lines quite frequently in his drawings, which can help things look more solid. This is what it looks like if we were to overlay those shapes shown earlier onto these drawings. As I've said numerous times in other videos, always keep the silhouette in mind. Start large and work your way down to smaller things like toes. It's subtle, but we can also see the edges of the tibia and fibula depicted here, with the tibia at a higher position than the fibula. You should also notice that the heel actually extends past the lower leg rather than it being completely straight. When drawing back views of the foot, you may want to include some lines to indicate the Achilles tendon along the heel as well. Another important concept to keep in mind when drawing feet is that people will almost always stand with their feet positioned at opposing angles. This left foot, for example, points towards us, while the right foot is closer to a profile view. Having both of a character's feet pointing straight ahead will look unnatural. The covered and uncovered feet shown in the corners are very gestural, but still communicate those bell and triangle shapes, while also keeping in mind the arch and bottom plane of the foot. These shoes are from an older drawing of mine, which I'll include as they're a good example of how the toe portion will often curve up slightly, showing a small portion of it from underneath. And lastly, I'll throw in some feet drawings from LaShawn Thomas because I think they're really good. These ones appear longer because they're seen more from above rather than straight on, but still create a similar silhouette to what we've already seen. Now with all this anatomical knowledge in your arsenal, you're a shoo-in for that storyboard position, and you're guaranteed to get the Tarantino stamp of approval. Thanks for watching.